On today's episode of Locked On Canadiens, Owen Beck seems penciled in for the third line center role next year, but can he truly replace Christian Dvorak's inputs?
You're Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into episode 1260 of Locked On Canadiens. We thank you, as always, for making us your first listen of the day here on Locked On Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. My name is Ian Boisvert, also known as Maybe It's Ian, and I'm joined, as I always am, by the incomparable Laura Saba, also known as the actress Dick. Laura, we're still in the afterglow of Montreal deciding to, well, I shouldn't even say Montreal deciding to keep Jake Evans. Jake Evans deciding that he wanted to stay in Montreal. He's finally meeting with the media after this, and we're getting some fun quotes, some words we can't say on this program. You'll just have to take our word for it. But it seems like the things we thought yesterday about why Jake Evans would stay seemed to be true when the man got in front of the camera and told us why he decided to stay.
I thought it was really interesting in that he and his wife were packed up already because they were so sure that they were going to be out of Montreal. And also he got asked about the money that he left on the table by re-signing in Montreal. And he said he doesn't give a crap, but the other word. So I think, Jake Evans wants to stay here because he believes in it. He believes in the culture. And I think for me, that's just a positive sign for everyone else. Maybe not so positive a sign for Christian Dvorak.
Yeah, we'll touch on Devo in just a little bit. But yeah, I thought the story about how him and his wife were packed up was like genuinely heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
The thought that it was coming to an end, and they wanted to stay. Montreal is a place where they probably feel like it's home to them.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the mantra is don't mess with happy, right? And I think that's what Jake Evans decided to do. More than happy to keep him today. It just seems like everybody's super thrilled with this deal. Still, one guy that might not be, but I don't know how much it truly impacted whether or not this player was going to stay, is Christian Dvorak. We'll touch on him in our first segment, and whether or not Owen Beck can replace him next year. Is it truly something that a rookie or close to rookie will be able to do? Then let's talk about Jake Evans' partner in crime in Joel Armia, and whether or not it makes sense to keep him now as a Montreal Canadien, or if he's also going to walk in free agency. And then I have something fun cooked up for the very end of the show. It's not a rumor roundup, so apologies for that. Maybe we'll get a last one in tomorrow ahead of the trade deadline. But it is a review of some of the trade proposals that get posted by internet users on Puckpedia.com, where you can post just lineups that you've created, and some of them are very funny. Some of the titles are excellent. Some people left rationale in there to tell us why they thought certain things would work. So we'll get into that at the very end as sort of an appetizer for the trade deadline to come, or maybe it'll make us feel greatly disappointed in the trade deadline because nothing will be as entertaining as what these people came up with on the internet. But let's start with Christian Dvorak. With the signing of Jake Evans, Christian Dvorak was already likely to leave at the end of the year. Now it kind of just drives that home that he's not going to be part of the plans in Montreal. The thought here is that Owen Beck replaces Christian Dvorak as the third line center on this team moving forward. Do we think that's a reasonable goal for a guy in Owen Beck who, he's played great in the AHL. He's had great moments in the NHL so far. Is that something that we genuinely think he's capable of doing next season?
I think so. I think our expectations can't be too high at the beginning. It's going to take some time. I personally think that there's a reason that this player was picked almost in the first round, right? It was literally the first pick of the second round. And he was projected to be exactly what this is, like a bottom six forward who can win your faceoffs in those crucial draws and who can penalty kill, right?
Yeah.
And there were so many narratives over the past couple of years about how, he's not dominant, he's not scoring enough, he's not. we're not going to need him to score enough if he does all those other things right, right?
Yeah, it's true.
And so I think that the other really important note here is that Christian Dvorak was inherited. Owen
Yeah.
Beck was chosen, right?
Yeah, it's a great
By
point.
default, he fits more into their future plans, just by definition. Christian Dvorak did not do much to endear himself to the fans the last couple of years. He did not do much to endear himself, I don't think, to the front office either. Like, if I'm looking at this guy, do I want to spend money keeping him? It's a very, very different than Jake Evans, or as we're going to talk about, Joel Armia in a second. Like, to me, Christian Dvorak is an utterly replaceable player. Everything he brings can be replaced by somebody already in the lineup or already in the system, right? So to me, he's just creating more logjam at center. I don't think that the Canadiens need to keep him. They might like him, but that's all well and good. Like, if he doesn't fit into the vision for the team, he's not going to be here. We did have a lot of mailbag questions over the course of this year being like, like, if there's no alternative, why don't they just sign him for a while? Well, there's tons of guys waiting in the wings, right? We're not just talking about Owen Beck. We're talking about Kapanen. We're talking about it's a literal logjam, right?
Yeah.
So he doesn't fit into the future of this team. As nice as he might be, as much as Cole Caulfield may love hanging out with him, I honestly, like, he's not a guy that you make sacrifices to keep.
I think that last point is exactly what you should feel if you're the Montreal Canadiens about Christian Dvorak. If Christian Dvorak was signed for another year, it's not like we're running him out the door, right?
No.
Like, he plays a role right now that I think isn't always conducive to putting a young player in. He plays lower six,
Crucial faceoffs.
crucial face-off. That is one point I wanted to make here. So, Lord, stop me if you've heard this before, but I have pulled some statistics on hockey.
No.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. Christian Dvorak. There are 62 players in the National Hockey League have taken at least 700 faceoffs this year. Christian Dvorak is 8th in win percentage at the draw. With every player in the league who has taken over 700 faceoffs, 56.9% at the draw. For reference, Jake Evans is 27th at 52.8. Suzuki is 37th at 50.4, and there is no other Montreal Canadian above 50% at the moment.
This is something they're notoriously weak at. Let's talk about that too, right?
Yeah.
This is definitely something. And faceoffs don't necessarily win you games, but they might lose you a game late if you're starting in the defensive zone, right? So it's all about when and where. But I'm not surprised that the Canadiens are not that good there. Like, we've known it all along. But I think Owen Beck doesn't have, obviously, he's not taken 700 draws yet.
No.
But he has a history of being the best in the league, in the leagues that he's played in previously. So I have no reason to believe that he's going to be any less than that with enough time at the NHL level.
Does it change anything for you that Christian Dvorak is left-handed, and now looking down the middle, it's Nick Suzuki, right-handed. If Kirby Dach is still there, Kirby Dach, right-handed. Owen Beck, right-handed. Jake Evans, right-handed. The only one we would have left next year would be Alex Newhook. Does that, and I mean, they like to use Christian Dvorak in the draws that if you're in the defensive zone, it's on the left side of your goalie. They like to use him in those situations. Does that change any of the value proposition to you from what maybe not so much a Christian Dvorak would bring, but would it make sense to bring in somebody who can win, a left-handed faceoff man who can come in and win some draws? Because
I think so.
I don't know that it matters necessarily to me, but I know it matters to Marty, and it matters to the players that they're comfortable on the side taking the draw they're comfortable on.
Right. So I think that's not something that, again, you don't make sacrifices to keep Christian Dvorak for that reason, because there's plenty of other guys, right?
Yeah.
They might not be in the system right now, but there's plenty of other guys. I do think that the consideration should be made. And I think the front office is definitely, like, looks at that. And we talk about it all the time. We talk about it with every player, centers, defensemen, wingers, particularly with defensemen. But either way, I think it's more important to use that cap space for something that will be part of your core and is part of your vision that you chose.
Yeah, no, totally. It makes all the sense in the world to, move on from this player at this point. But I do wonder, who takes the role of Christian Dvorak is almost exclusively a defensive player for the Montreal Canadiens. His offensive outputs are not all that great, which is why it was so funny. The one game we went and saw together this year was the greatest game Christian Dvorak has ever played, and he had 2 points, and he was just up and down the ice, looked really great. I don't think he's getting traded because that cap hit $4.45 million. Boy, that's not great. And I don't think the Canadiens are in a rush to be able to use that last retention spot, because they might want to do something at the draft where they would have to use that retention spot. So I think Dvorak is here to the end of the year, but then it's anybody's guess as to whether or not the Canadiens think Owen Beck can be that replacement, or if not only next year we're looking for a 2C replacement, but potentially a 3 if Owen Beck can't play, the same kind of defensive hockey that we've seen from Christian Dvorak. All right, we're going to move on from Devo. We're going to move, I guess, down the lineup to the fourth line, although it's once you get to those bottom 2 lines, they're kind of interchangeable. And we're going to talk about Joel Armia and whether or not it makes sense for him to stay in Montreal past this season. And we'll do that in just a minute. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3, I feel like I never truly missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, we are back. From one UFA to another, we move to Jake Evans' partner in crime, Joel Armia, who, it was teased, I know Arp and Basu was all over this, that Montreal was trying to move both Evans and Armia as a package deal to sort of, get a larger return back for them, as opposed to getting a second and a third or a fourth, getting a first. Obviously, that's not going to come to pass. They signed Evans, and it doesn't seem like there's really an appetite to trade Joel Armia on his own. From your perspective, should there be an appetite, should the contract make sense to keep Joel Armia past this year? Or
Yes.
are we just falling in love with our own guys? You've already enthusiastically jumped in and said, yes, I agree with you. Let's talk about why that is. Why do you think that we need that kind of player, or that exact player, on this team next year?
Because his contract is inflated. So presumably Kent Hughes would sign him to something a little bit more reasonable. Now, whether or not he would accept it, that's a totally different question. But the things that he brings in terms of penalty kill and occasionally like energy, he fulfills the role of a player that makes half his salary does, but he fulfills it really well.
Yeah.
Right? The problem with Armia is his inflated contract. And that season that he had, where it culminated in him being sent down to the AHL, that was the first season after he'd signed, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. That was it was an ill-advised situation that was inherited over from the previous front office. And I just think that had he been making $2 million a year, I think it would have been fine. None of us would have been this hard on him in that, like, I think it was a year and a bit that was taking place. I just think that if the contract makes sense, Joel Armia is already integrated into this team. He's already one of the best defensive players on this team, which is not saying much, but it is a little bit, right? So you're going to have to, and that veteran presence, right? A lot of the things that he does well, particularly defensively, particularly with decisions that he makes and positionally, that comes from being a veteran. That comes from having played on this team for so long. And he's played under different coaches. He's played under different front offices. He came over from Winnipeg. I just think that what he brings, it will take a long time to replace from within, like bringing somebody up to do all of that. Maybe they're out of time, to do that. Like, sorry, when I say that, I just mean the runway is short. Not that they're out of time. The runway is short because
Yeah.
everyone else is taking that step forward. You can't have somebody dragging them down and lagging in their development. And I also just think that, yes, he might be a replaceable player, but why waste time? It's just a matter of whether or not he wants to sign here for less. And
Yeah.
that's really the biggest argument. It's not that he works well with Jake Evans, all of that kind of stuff. Yes, it's true. It's true, but I just believe that it's a waste of time, if not money.
Yeah. Look, I think those are perfect reasons for him to stay. I know, from everything he's said, Joel Armia, he wants to stay in Montreal Canadiens. He likes it here, which on its face, if you were, outside of the Montreal ecosystem and you heard that, you go, yeah, every player says that, whatever.
Yeah.
Joel Armia is a player that I think has maybe a reason to not want to be a Montreal Canadien after the terrible season he had a year and a half ago at this point.
Yeah.
And the fact that he wants to stay through all of that means that they've not only rebuilt this team, but they've rebuilt that player, right?
Yes.
That player was untradeable. No one was going to take that. I mean, he's only $3.4 million cap hit, but no one was going to touch that at the way he was playing a while ago. And he is completely, and he should own every bit of the pride and, ownership of him bringing himself back. He pulled himself up and he got back to a level of play that makes him an incredibly effective player. I just think that, the same things that we talked about with Jake Evans, right? Everyone's saying we have to trade him. Okay. Then you have to go spend assets or more free agent money to sign a fourth line center who might not be as good, who doesn't know the system and might cost more money. All of those things, that's now Joel Armia, right? Like we've just kind of shifted the problem from one player to the next.
Yeah.
So
And
I think it
do
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I do think it can't be too long as well because he is 31
Yes.
years old. But players like him, their body will last a little bit longer than say a Gallagher's would, right? So I think that it's safe. It's safe for 2 to 3 years. I
Yeah.
don't think they should be signing him for longer than that.
Yeah, I would be if it comes in 2 years, $2 million per season, maybe
Yeah.
a hair over 2.5. I'd be
Yeah.
fine with that.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of whether or not Joel Armia wants to test the market, or if that is enough to convince him that, yep, Montreal is where I want to be. Like that's what happened with Jake Evans. He decided that the money he was leaving on the table was worth less than the security of being in the place you want to be, as opposed to getting to July 1st and looking around and saying, maybe I don't want to live in X place. I don't want to live there. I want to stay
I don't
here.
want to live without my Cole Caulfield and my Lane Hudson.
Yes.
And my Suzuki.
And who knows, maybe next year when, if and when Dvorak is gone, Jake Evans replaces him in the circle of friendship.
Yeah.
That you see at the end of the game. That was so much fun to see live and in person.
And then we went and did it.
It was even then we did it with the Roberts brothers, which was fantastic. Shout out to those guys again. That was a lot of fun. So yeah, look, I mean, is there somebody in the system who can replace what Joel Armia does right now?
I don't think so, because there's also the size aspect, right?
Yeah, he's big.
Yeah.
And this front office likes their forwards big.
Yeah.
And
who doesn't really?
Yeah, especially
all of our commenters.
When they have the soft skills that Joel Armia does too. He's got incredible hands. He's got a very good shot that he seldom uses anymore for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's because he's got Emil Heineman on his line, who has an incredible shot, and he's just going to keep feeding Heineman. But yeah, I tend to agree with that. There's not a player in Laval that can immediately step in and do what he does. Maybe one day Tuck is that player.
Yeah,
he's not right now though, and he won't be for the foreseeable future. No, he's a bull in a china shop. Tuck. Yeah. I'm very intrigued by that player. That's a fun prospect to be thinking about.
I do want to ask though, like the power of friendship, right? Like we've talked about it, we've loved it. Doesn't it feel a little bit exclusionary and cliquey though?
Maybe.
The others don't seem to be complaining about it.
No, and look, no one. I don't think any of the players complained about the 0005 either. But
that guy.
Yeah, that got taken away by a guy who I don't think knows how to spell the word fun. But that's an issue for another era. It's so disappointing that like whenever we think about the previous era of this team, it's something like that. Or it's something like even before that, it was like Pierre Gauthier took away the cookies on the plane, right?
Yeah.
Like that was a real story that happened when Pierre Gauthier was in charge of the Montreal Canadiens. It's just so funny that we're at this where I don't think these guys could care less what any of their players are doing, in that respect. They trust them, which was not a thing that took place in previous regimes in Montreal.
It is the be safe and have fun parenting
Yes.
of hockey management.
Yeah, exactly. All right. We're going to leave that there. And when we come back, we've got something really funny planned. We're going to take a look at some trade proposals from Puckpedia.com to see if people on the internet are as unhinged as we may believe them to be. And we'll get into all that in just a minute. All right. Laura, are you ready for some completely bonkers, unhinged trade proposals? I have some.
I, for one, would like to state that I am also unhinged. So
Yeah, let's go.
let's see. Let's see if these are more or less unhinged than the co-hosts of Locked On Canadiens.
Yeah, let's do it. This first one is titled "I don't want him, but ... Zegras ? To Montreal, Trevor Zegras. To Anaheim, Alex Newhook, Logan Mailloux, Joshua Waugh, and a 2026 second-round pick that belonged to Columbus and came to Montreal via the Patrick Laine deal. Your immediate thoughts, Laura?
That's too much.
I tend to agree with that as well.
It's way too much.
Way too much for a guy that we don't even know will be a center in Montreal, for what it's worth. Like that has to be part of the discussion.
The whole thing, yes.
Yeah, and
kind of like a hybrid, like Newhook, maybe.
Again, you mean like the guy that's going back the other way in the same trade? Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense.
I'm not comparing their talent level, just to be clear, or their skill level. That's not what I'm doing.
No, Laura said they're the exact same person. I heard her. She said it was crazy.
My favorite thing though is like, I don't want him, but like that is definitely one of our listeners for sure. If it's one of you, like let us know.
Show yourself.
Show yourself.
Yeah, look, I even just every part of it doesn't really make a ton of sense. Like if Montreal was to trade Logan Mailloux, it's for something that like a can't miss. And that's not to say Logan Mailloux isn't a can't miss prospect, but the tools that he has makes him very valuable on the trade market, because it's not a player that if he hits the way that folks think he might, he's not a guy that you can get all of the time.
That speed with those hands and the size.
Yeah, exactly. The challenge has been his defensive play. He has taken steps forward this year, very small, and at the NHL level, and the few moments we've gotten to see him in, he's looked okay. But I think we'd be giving up on Joshua Waugh a little bit too early here. He's kind of going through a rough season, but like I don't think I'm ready to. In this trade, he almost seems like an afterthought, right? Like and Joshua Waugh in a second. Like it just doesn't seem like
he's not an afterthought yet. He's gonna need to do some work this summer is all.
Yep. As are a lot of these players. All right. Next one is titled All In Trade Deadline. This one is entirely unhinged.
Is it for Sidney Crosby?
It isn't for Sidney Crosby. Look, there were some for Sidney Crosby that I just had to like. I'll tell you one that was for Sidney Crosby. It was like Kirby Dach and Jaden Struble for Sidney Crosby and Chris Letang. And I was like, that's not even like worth bringing up. It's not. It's like that's so deeply untethered from reality. We can't even like begin to believe or to talk about that.
That one was not one of our listeners.
No.
They knew I would come for them.
Yeah.
Or they would know I would come for them.
All right, this one, all in trade deadline.
Yes.
To the New York Islanders, we'll start there. Kirby Dach, David Reinbacher, Oliver Kapanen, Luke Tuck, Calgary's 25 first rounder, and Montreal's 25 first rounder. Already, we haven't even seen what Montreal's getting. That would be completely bonkers if Montreal tried this.
Is this Eric Lindros we're getting?
No, instead we are getting to Montreal, Bo Horvat, and Noah Dobson. Your thoughts on that deal as it is constructed?
That is quite unhinged.
It's unhinged.
That is so much. That is so much stuff.
It is so much stuff. And I
was like, why don't you just throw in Jakub Dobiš? Why don't you just give them Nick Suzuki?
Yeah. It's like in the NHL games when you just like, you'd put a trade together and the value bar wasn't in the right spot. So you would just keep adding like late draft picks to like balance the bar out. And it's like, you're trading 18 7th round picks and you get, a second line center. That's not how this works.
Don't be doing it.
This is bananas. I don't think that if Montreal were to trade for Noah Dobson, that they could reasonably talk about putting David Reinbacher in that deal.
No.
The idea is to build with both of them.
Yes.
If you get rid of one, yes, Dobson's a more sure thing, but like we haven't even seen David Reinbacher play much at the NHL level. So that doesn't really doesn't do much for me.
Nope.
All right. Moving on. We've got two more. This one is just titled "What If." There's two trades here. Great start. What if? to the Boston Bruins.
No.
Already gross.
Immediately no.
Kirby Dach, Oliver Kapanen, and a 25 second round pick. And in return, Montreal gets center Pavel Zacha, $4.8 million cap hit on that player. Your thoughts on that deal?
I don't think it's very even.
No, I mean, and why would Boston do that at the same time? Zacha is a proven commodity. I know the Bruins are kind of rebuilding a little bit. They're going to retool, but that doesn't make a ton of sense if you're Boston.
No.
And then on the other side, there's another trade in the same one to the New York Islanders, Logan Mailloux, the Devils' 3rd round pick, the Canadiens' 1st rounder next season, and the Columbus 2nd rounder next season that came over in the Patrick Laine trade. That Devils' 3rd is from the Jake Allen deal. And to Montreal, Noah Dobson. That seems a little bit more realistic for maybe not what the value of Noah Dobson actually is, but what Montreal might be willing to give up for a player like that. Does it not?
Yeah. I do think so. I think maybe Montreal would be willing to give a little less. Like maybe remove like a person or the pick,
Yeah. I think they would try
the 1st rounder from next year, remove that.
Yeah, then you'd have to, let's play this game. Would you remove that 1st rounder in 26 and replace it with the Flames 1st rounder this season?
Ooh.
So you're essentially betting on your team.
Rounders. We're not giving any of the 1st rounders.
So we're going Mark Bergevin on this. Never trade a 1st rounder.
We are not trading a 1st rounder.
Christian Dvorak.
No, I think there's a lot in there, right? Like there's multiple picks in there. You don't need that many picks, and then it's like players and then picks, right? You got to calm down a little bit.
Yeah, totally. All right.
Especially looking at what's happening in the trade market right as we speak.
Yeah, I know. It's recording anything and putting it in the can at this time of year. You're playing roulette. You are playing a dangerous game. We're doing our best. If anything happens with the Canadiens, we will be there for you guys. But right now, it's just sort of waiting on pins and needles to see if Kent Hughes ruins our episode. Yes. All right. The last trade we mentioned Christian Dvorak. This one involves Christian Dvorak. To the New York Islanders, Christian Dvorak and the Columbus 26 second round pick. And in return, Jean-Gabriel Pageau with another year on his deal with $2.5 million retained to the New York Islanders. Your thoughts on this?
With 4 own goals just to spite us. You can take him out of Ottawa. You cannot take Ottawa out of him. That man will not come to Montreal.
So the reason I kind of like this deal is we talked about the faceoffs needing to be replaced with Christian Dvorak leaving. Yeah. Jean-Gabriel Pageau is quite good at the faceoff dot, 59.6% this season. He's 54% for his career. He's a very reliable faceoff man.
He also reliably scores tons of goals against Montreal.
Well, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of when Montreal got Eric Cole, the guy who just used to light Montreal up all the time, and they got him, and he got here, and all he did was score. That was kind of nice. It was nice having that on our. It would be like now if Montreal went and figured out how to get prime Jeff Skinner back on this team, because that guy always tore Montreal up.
Yeah.
This is a deal I don't know that the Islanders would have any reason to do, but I think we're on the right path as far as thinking of if you want to try to replace a Christian Dvorak, that's the kind of player you're looking at. You're paying a premium. That's a big cap hit for that player, but you're getting a proven commodity in JG Pageau.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, that was fun. Send in your own trade proposals. Put them in the comments. We'll see. We'll use that on our mailbag on Friday. We'll walk through some of those and see what you guys have come up with, or just post them on Puckpedia. I'll go find them, and we'll be able to tell who listens to this show based on how they post trades on there. All right, let's hit our trivia and then head out of here for the day, and cross our fingers and hope Kent Hughes doesn't make this obsolete within moments of us hitting the end recording button. All right,
trades Armia.
It's the Justin Barron trade all over again. That was still have nightmares. That was the first time that had happened to me.
You read our mind. All right.
Yesterday's question, in honor of Jake Evans staying in Montreal, the question was about Jake. Evans played a big role on the 2013 St. Michael's Buzzers of the Ontario Junior Hockey League, the team that won the championship. He scored 12 goals and added 32 assists for 44 points in 50 games. Only one other player on that team played NHL games at some point. Who is that player, Laura?
The answer is Mitch Marner.
Mitchell Marner, Christian Dvorak's best friend, Mitch Marner. Yes, they both played on that team. Super Rain had it first, Joe Segredo and Good Sport followed. All right, today's question. Since we were talking about JG Pageau, I thought it was interesting to go in and see how much damage he had actually done against the Montreal Canadiens. In the playoffs and regular season combined, how many goals has JG Pageau scored against the Montreal Canadiens? If you have the answer, you know where to send it. Put it in the comments on YouTube. Send it to us via email, TikTok comment, anything you guys know how to reach us. We will do our best to give you a shout out on the next episode of the show. But that's going to do it for us today on Locked On Canadiens. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day and for subscribing wherever you get your shows. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast, bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter with local coverage from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. With the trade deadline coming up, they are an integral listen for you, so go check them out. Of course, after you listen to us on Friday morning. Like I said, you can find us anywhere. Tomorrow, we are recording our mailbag, so send in your comments now, questions now. LockedOnCanadiens@gmail.com. Locked On Canadiens anywhere on social media that you can find us posting things. We'll get to your questions tomorrow. It's always a really fun time. You can find me at Maybe It's Ian. You can find Laura at The Active Stick. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.